Hello there. All right, guys, today we're taking a look at the one-piece flight suit and its use for ground combat operations. Now, said both us, Air Force Security Forces, and the Marines, we definitely wore this uniform outside the wire in both Iraq and Afghanistan during like the mid-2000s, so kind of like that standard like GWAT time. And some of the guys have asked, hey, is this here still a good uniform to, to use, for stuff like that, to use, like, that ground combat, environment? And the answer may surprise you guys. The answer is no, absolutely not. It is 2026. There's better stuff. All right, so let's take a look. All right, guys. So big thing to understand. The reason why we were wearing this right here in the first place was because of the FR capabilities that the uniform has. So obviously, our biggest thing that we were concerned about at that time was IEDs, and that's anything from like your larger munitions to EFPs, especially. And the DCUs didn't quite like work out, and then of course as we were starting to switch over to the ABUs, as like the very first iteration of the ABU, if you actually end up getting like blown up, they were saying that like that extreme like heat would end up melting that uniform to like your body, just because of the material that it was made out of. So we ended up getting the flight suits. So we got 4 of them issued out to us for the entire year that we were in Iraq. And after a whole mess load of washes, it started to be at least somewhat comfortable. As that it is like extremely thick, especially in that heat with the old Interceptor body armor like over it. But as you continue like to wash it, you're actually washing out some of those FR capabilities that the uniform like has. Some of the things that we ended up like doing, like almost all of us, we were free balling that whole year. All right, it was hot. Your shirts, you'd cut the sleeves off of the shirts. You'd actually cut it just underneath. So that way it looked like you were wearing a shirt underneath, but you really weren't. Yes, we did of course have the FR, underwear, shirts, socks, like things like that. But it was just so hot all the time that most of us were like, nah, we're not doing that. You'd roll the sleeves up as soon as you'd break wire. If you had at least had like a cool squad leader, as soon as you were coming back to the fob though, you had to roll that shit right back down. Someone was gonna yell at you. So it was okay in the sense that said it was going to offer a little bit of like protection, but comfort level said one, I've got pockets on the chest, I can't really get to them. I have no belt loops if you were trying to wear a belt, so we were wearing the M9s at the time. You literally just had to like cinch that belt on as tight as you could, and then because you had like the old school drop leg like holsters, we had like the Black Hawk Omegas and into the Safari Land. Then we had some of those Black Hawk Serpa holsters that General Hertog pushed out to us. There are a few pictures I have where you see I'm actually wearing my pistol on my chest in the Black Hawk Serpa holster, and that was just because it sucked trying to wear a belt like with these things. So it worked, but it was definitely not the best thing that we could have. Now fast forward to now 2026, hell, even not that long ago, maybe 10 years ago, there was the big push out for the combat uniforms, and that is what this right here you kind of evolved into. There were a lot of issues that we had with our standard uniforms, so we developed these. So let's take a look at these ones right here. All right, so combat shirts. All right, these things absolutely kick the crap out of wearing anything like this right here. So we have both a Massif and a Cry. I think it's a G3. But really, so when we talk like the material that it is made out of, all right, so I don't have to worry about chest pockets, right? This portion that's actually on like your body that's sitting underneath your armor, extremely comfortable. Also, if like you are sweating, it definitely kind of helps out like with that. I actually have useful pockets on like the sleeves here that I can actually get to, and both of these are here have like the same thing when it comes down to the actual the quarter zip. We did get some of the old school Army issued ones that were like their the turtlenecks. Those things were awful. I hated those. Yes, there was a little bit more like protection. It did offer a little bit more. Now, I don't want to say like comfort, but said if your IBA was kind of sitting up a little bit, you'd have that kind of like rubbing into like your neck. But if you just needed to just zip this here like all the way up, and you were fine with it. But also they said it just helped really get like that airflow like inside the armor. And of course everybody's favorite thing, combat pants. All right, now combat pants were designed after once again realizing stuff like this here like didn't work, and we wanted to make things like better. One big difference between the flight suit and wearing something like the two-piece thing like this here is actually having like belt loops. So for your two-piece belts, you can actually wear them; they will stay on. You don't have to worry about having like a leg strap actually holding that down to you when you actually do your draw. So that was helpful. But these right here, right? So like the knee pads. There is a reason why we always like push that if you're going to do any sort of like, like mission to where, especially for security forces, if you're going outside the wire, things like that, we're like, hey, give me some combat pants, right? Because they have the knee pads built in. Instead, they'll tell you to go out with like your OCPs, and they'll actually still issue, out knee pads. So trying to wear knee pads, especially over the flight suit, kind of sucked. There was a few guys that were able to make it work. I think for most of us, so both us, Army, Marines, anybody that we see, you'd have to have your knee pads on, but they were always around your ankles. Kind of a kicker with that is that you actually see the Iraqi police, the Iraqi army, they were actually wearing the knee pads on their ankles on purpose. And then the larger elbow pads that we had, they were actually wearing those on their knees because the knee pads were always falling down. So actually having a uniform that has the knee pads built into it is pretty much the go-to, all right? So once again, it is 2026. The flight suit, not a go-to, guys. Like I said, it works if you need FR and you have nothing else. Yes, it's super easy to hop into, but they said there are other uniforms even that are the one piece that'll still work out a little bit better because they'll have the belt loops kind of built into it. So yes, while it is old school, there's a little bit of a nostalgia with it. I would not recommend anybody being hey, rather than issuing me out a combat uniform, go ahead and give me the flight suit. All right. So hope that answers y'all's questions. If you got any more, hit me up. Here for y'all. Later.